Democrats and the media doing some damage control for Hunter Biden after his sweetheart plea deal unraveled and a special counsel was named. The first son's overseas business dealings will be getting another look under the hood by Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss. The never-ending legal drama surrounding Hunter putting the president's allies on defense and members of the press thinking the first son is getting a raw deal.
Congress needs to stop investigating a private citizen and stop this fishing expedition to try to link President Biden to Hunter Biden's conduct.
Hunter Biden's being subjected here to a level of not only scrutiny, but accountability that most mere mortals would not.
Hunter Biden, he could be a terrible guy. I don't know, never met him, is being treated worse than anyone else would be.
This is the son of the president. He's not the candidate. He's not a political officer. Doesn't even begin to compare to classified documents and to the indictment here in D.C.
Hunter's attorneys trying to set the narrative on the special counsel by saying there's nothing new here.
There's no new evidence to be found, and the facts and the evidence that have been pursued by however many members of Congress and their staffs and media looking for any possible connection has shown time and time again it doesn't exist. If the most people that are criticizing the Biden family is that when the president calls his son every day and it goes on the speakerphone, he says hello to the people in the room, that is not an offense. That is nothing other than a loving father.
That's also not what happened. But anyway, Republican lawmakers continue to blast the appointment of David Weiss as special counsel. I put that in quotes, criticizing his role for setting up the sweetheart deal as the main reason to mistrust him.
Well, this is a joke. All that Merrick Garland did was validate the point that many Republicans have been making, that the Department of Justice was weaponized. The fact that I have no confidence that Merrick Garland would appoint anyone credible. I never dreamed he would do as bad as he did with Weiss. Not only did Weiss drag his feet for 5 years and try to negotiate a sweetheart plea deal with the president's son, he also let the statute of limitations run out.
Okay, Judge Pirro, there's one other piece of sound I want to play. This is something that caught your attention. This is, again, Hunter's attorney, Abby Lowell.
Are you saying that the government prosecutors are incompetent?
I'm saying there's one of three possibilities.
And that was one of them, is what you're suggesting.
I wouldn't say, I didn't use that word, you did.
No,
I said
did.
that they changed their decision on the fly standing up in court.
All right, go ahead, Judge.
You ready? Okay. The prosecutors changed their decision on the fly standing up in court. Now, Abby Lowell is brilliant. If I got in trouble, I would hire Abby Lowell, okay? But having said that, it's got to pass the smell test. Do you really think that the prosecutors are going to stand up in court on the fly and say, we want to give this guy immunity for the rest of his life, as if that was something that they decided to do on their own and the defense wasn't going to accept it? I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. What the prosecutors did was they gave him immunity for everything. All right. So what's the point of the special counsel? And yet we appoint this guy, or Joe Biden appoints this guy special counsel. Now, Abby Lowell is convinced that there will be no new evidence. Well, I don't know how Abby Lowell knows that, because they're still finding new bank accounts. But the truth is that at least Donald Trump, with the Mueller special counsel, went outside of the government. Yeah. And it involved him. It involved him in the idea of his being a Putin puppet or a Russian asset.
Yep.
Joe Biden would never go outside of the government and get a Mueller to investigate himself and his son. So Joe Biden insisted on having his thumb on the scale, and at least Donald Trump was willing to go outside the government. But having said all of that, I think it's so disingenuous for people like Dan Goldman to say it's a fishing expedition. No one should be allowed to do this to a civilian. The truth is, it was Goldman who admitted that Biden talked business, and he says it doesn't sound like Joe Biden is involved in Hunter's businesses if all Hunter is saying is, I'm trying to do business with a Chinese-connected oil company, Chinese Communist Party-connected oil company. The whole thing is a charade. Nothing will change. If indeed the Weiss had the ability to do whatever he wanted and didn't need special counsel status, why does he need it now?
Yeah, Harold, doesn't this seem like Garland was trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube and then shut the tube behind glass doors and throw away the key? Because he doesn't. That's a lot of metaphors.
They do that at Walgreens now.
That's right. You gotta call somebody to ask them to come see if they could open up that key, and that's part of the idea, right? Is to lock it up so that they can get it past the election.
Good to be back around the table. Hope everybody had a good weekend. A couple of things. First of all, David Weiss is a Trump appointee.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, last I checked,
Technically, yes.
Well, he was appointed by former President
Recommended by the Dems in that state with the blue slip.
But that's what happens when if a state is controlled by Republicans as a Democrat president, in order to get someone appointed in any of those states,
So
you have to go
you
through.
admit that the Democrats.
And he's
I admit
still not
that-
a special counsel because he's still within the government.
Are you sure it's nice to be back at the table?
He was still
Harold,
appointed. Look, if I had your fact pattern, I'd be arguing the same thing. He was appointed by Trump. He admitted the other day that the deal with Hunter Biden is off. He said that President Biden, he could not assure people that President Biden was not himself being investigated. And 4, the deal that he brokered with Hunter, that eventually the court, when asked both sides in court, and remember, Judge, you and I both know, when anyone enters a guilty plea, the purpose of that hearing before that judge is to make, the judge gives the defendant, the accused, wants to make sure the accused understands that he or she is admitting guilt and what the consequences and ramifications are for doing that. So she laid that out for him and then asked the basic question: does this ensure that he is not indicted on any other matters? And when asked that question, it became apparent there was not a meeting of the minds between the prosecutor or the defense. Now, one can make the argument that they knew that before they walked in. I don't know if they knew that before they walked in, but what I do know now is that Hunter Biden does not have a plea deal for the gun charge. He does not have a plea deal for the tax things that they were looking into for the years, nor does he have immunity or deal for any of the other things they may want to look into. And it's obvious that it could implicate President Biden. So I'm not and I'm not saying it does. I'm only saying I think there's a hyper reaction to this by some in Congress whom I think want to investigate this. They have every right to exercise oversight. But to suggest that David Weiss should not be the person for a reason that I can't quite understand, that they just don't like him, I think is juvenile on their part.
Okay. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah.
You're a juvenile.
You can take that on too.
No, I'll take this on. There's only so much time. First off, we're just discounting what the whistleblowers are solely responsible for this happening.
Yep.
And for Margaret Brennan and Chuck Todd and everybody else to sit there and talk to Abby Lowell and others about this investigation and not say, but the whistleblowers have a different story. David Weiss did not have the power to be a special prosecutor. He did not have the power to move the case to Los Angeles. He did not have the power to D.C., and he said so, and they memorialized it in their notes, and they're waiting to be challenged. So you say to yourself, what motivation do the whistleblowers have? I'd like to destroy my career, prevent myself from getting a promotion, put my benefits on the line, and be ostracized in my work environment to do the right thing. So they went out, and Shapley and the other guy went out and put themselves on the line, and that's the reason why this is happening. The question is David Weiss going to start he's in Los Angeles now, is he going to start using that investigative power? And I don't know why, Judge, I'm being more optimistic than you, but why wouldn't he start looking into international business deals now? I mean, he has had the ability, now he's got the power. Why did he ask on Tuesday and get it on Friday? So my hope is he'll look into it, and Harold, if he's clean, he's clean.
I'm not saying he's clean or not. I'm only saying that the Weiss appointment does not unnerve me or unsettle me like.
Well, the problem is he's been inept for 5 years, and he's letting all these things evaporate.
The statute of limitations pass on the highest tax.
That's the problem.
It stinks to high heaven. I was a spokesperson of the Justice Department. I would not have been able to defend this. I'll tell you that much. I would have said, no, I would have just, I would have said, see you later. I'm out of here. The other thing is Joy Reid, how she says,
I love her.
I know you do. How she says that Hunter Biden is being treated worse than anybody else. And we interviewed the guy, Daryl D'Souza, not too long ago, who had the same tax charges, no gun charge, and he did 10 months in prison.
Yeah, I wonder who she's comparing him to, which makes me think that for once, I'm going to have to agree with her, and I'm going to have to agree with the media. It's not Hunter. This isn't about it, Hunter. First of all, in terms of family members, he's as shady as they come. He makes Roger Clinton looks like, I don't know, Roger Ebert. Not a lot of Roberts out there, Rogers. But he's a first-level bona fide dirtbag. And yet, what if we have it backwards? If it's not that Hunter has been a problem for Joe. It's Joe who is a burden to Hunter. I mean, who is forcing him to make it rain? Who is making sure he goes to all these countries, set up these bogus companies and fly all over? If you have real concern for your son, who's just a terrible drug addict, and you love him so much, why are you forcing him to go to all these business meetings? That seems like the opposite thing you would do if you were a loving father. right? You would tell him, get up. No, you're not going anywhere else. This is too much. You need to take a break. So we're watching the reversal of truth. They're making Hunter the crooked, out of control son that tests the love of his father every day, when it's actually Joe that's forcing Hunter to go out and make the money so that Joe lives the comfortable lifestyle that he's never been able to afford. And I think that Hunter didn't mind it under the assumption that Biden wasn't going to be in office after 2016. And then what happened was he's making all these deals, and all of a sudden Joe's back at the White House. It's like he's not prepared for this. Does this mean I can't do coke at the White House? This is totally unfair, Dad. I want to still do coke, and now I got to do it in the White House.
Well, he also had to be, he did most of his business dealing when he was a lame duck. He started putting it on hyperspeed when going to Ukraine, when he was a lame duck. Looked like he was done. Hillary Clinton got the blessing of Barack Obama. It looked like he was out to pasture.
That's a good point. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.